Alright, welcome to our first Gamemaker tutorial. Go ahead and open up Gamemaker. It should be on your computer. If you're using the VMware, it should be on there as well. When you open it up, all you're going to do is welcome screen here. You're going to start a new project. You want to make sure that when you start a new project that it is on your H drive. If you save it to the local drive, it will probably be deleted. So right now, make sure that you are saving things to your H drive. You can click on these three buttons here. Make sure it's on your H drive so that you do not lose it. For me, since I'm not on the network, I'm not going to have an H drive, so I'm just going to save it locally. But for the project name, you can type in anything you want. So this is going to be, we're going to call this Bug Invasion. So you can name your project whatever you want to name it. This demo is going to be about bugs. So a couple things that you're going to have to kind of get used to in Gamemaker is you're going to have to figure out what all of these things are. So Gamemaker is a game engine that was originally released in 1999, and it's still going strong. So it's intended primarily for developers to make games in 2D, but you can also use it in 3D situations as well. The newest version is Gamemaker 2. This is not the newest version. You either have 1.4 or 1.2 on your computers, but here's what we're looking at. So you can see on the left hand side we have our assets here. We have our sprites, our sounds, backgrounds, basically all the things that we're going to use in here, and we're going to basically, as we get going here, as we do this demonstration, we'll kind of talk about each thing. So in our course, we are going to start talking about having some sort of design or story development in our games. Here's a template that I'm just going to show you for our current tutorial. This is one that you can use as we create further games, but it's kind of a planning document that allows you to that focuses on developing the story. So title of this game, or just this demonstration, Bug Invasion, talk about the gameplay. You must defend your home against the invading bugs. Click on the bugs to squish them. Be sure not to harm your spider friends. They can't be squished and will kill you if you try. So then you can really develop your story, and this kind of puts some meaning behind your work. Having a storyline definitely engages the user and gives you a little bit more focus on when you're creating your game elements. You kind of want to stick to that storyline once you kind of put something together, and it just makes it more interesting. So we have a basic conflict, you have a backstory, and kind of a starting place. You can read through this, but kind of a silly little background that we came up with. The goal of the game is to kill all the bad bugs while avoiding the spiders. If you read in here, let's see. Your home is a double-wide trailer in the hills of Tennessee. It needs a little work, but it is a home. The bugs are taking over your home, eating food supply and ruining your property. The spiders are your friends, and you have developed a symbiotic relationship with them. The spiders help to rid the other bugs, and in return you allow them to reside in your beautiful home. However, the other bugs are sick and tired of this treatment. They have formed large armies. They have formed large armies and are trying to overwhelm your house. The spiders can't keep up. The other bugs are trying to completely take over. So just completely made up, this little silly storyline. But as you get into your games, this will kind of help you think about what kind of setting you have. So you talk about what time period is this, what world are we in, what locations are we going to have inside of our game. Usually in a good story there's a good guy, there's a bad guy. We talk about the protagonist and the antagonist. Other things in here on the bottom we talk about, all right, given that story, what kind of game maker pieces are we going to have to develop, or are we going to have to use? So a little bit of a backstory. Okay, so keep that in mind as we continue in Gamemaker. Now, if you go to Canvas, there's going to be another little link to the resources, or basically just some pictures and sounds that we can use in this tutorial. So if you click on that, it'll bring up a bunch of different assets here. You can go ahead and just download these things. So go ahead and take some time to download them. I'm going to pause and and then make sure you download these. Alright, so I downloaded them all. I'm going to go back to Gamemaker. We're going to start by creating a sprite. So in this game we're going to have kind of a simple idea, but a lot of it is just to teach you about Gamemaker. We're going to create a sprite, and we're going to create a spider to start off with. So in sprites, you're going to right click on that sprites folder, and you're going to click on create sprite. You're going to name the sprite, and I like to preface each one as kind of the name of the object we have. So SPR, we're going to name the sprite. This is going to be the brown spider. So I'm just going to name it brown spider. Now, consider this sprite like an object. You know, an object has properties, it has attributes, and it also has actions. It has things that it can do. The first thing we're going to do is load the image, load an image of the sprite. So this is kind of similar to the costume in Scratch. So we're going to click on Load Sprite. I'm going to go to where I downloaded those things. Okay, and we're going to select the brown spider. So SPR brown right there. We're going to go ahead and click on OK, and you can see that it loads the sprite in here. Now, because Gamemaker is sort of an engine of sorts, it already has our collision detection built in for us, which is awesome. And so we can do different things with the collision detection. We can click on precise collision detection, which means we can basically say, you know, what is this object's like collision surface here? And so if you click on modify mask, you can do this. And right now, if you click on rectangle, which is already what it was, this whole rectangle is basically where the mask is right now. So if we had collision here, anything that would be touching this rectangle would be considered colliding with this spider. If we selected different shapes, like an ellipse, you know, I could manipulate that, and I can make that its collision surface as well. So you can do different kind of mathematical shapes. If you do precise, then it will try to literally go into this and just work on the pixels, like just whatever the spider is right there precisely. But that could bog down your program, because when it's checking, it's going to be checking something mathematical. It'll be checking every single pixel there. So you can experiment with it, but I'm going to, for now, keep it as the rectangle, because that makes it super fast and super easy for the computer. All right, so we click out of that. You can also edit the sprite. So it does have a little bit of an editor here, just kind of like Scratch did. You know, we can use Photoshop because we have it, but there are going to be some things within Gamemaker that you can do as well. So, I mean, we're not going to focus a lot on the editor here right now, but you can certainly click on some of these and see. You can do a lot more than Scratch here. Maybe not as much as Photoshop, but still you can do quite a bit of stuff here. Cropping and image manipulation and mirroring and scaling, and if you go to images, you can see all the different things that you can do. Also, you're going to see once we get to animations that the animation part of it is super easy. You can just add a bunch of costumes to this, and it will automatically cycle through the costumes and animate, which is really cool. But for now, we're going to leave that alone. All right, so we're going to leave that alone and just basically say OK here. You can see now that we have the brown spider as a sprite. Again, the sprite is really just the image or the set of images that basically are costumes for Gamemaker. Now, in order to put this brown spider into like our game or our setting, we are going to have to create an object along with it. So here's the objects down here. We're going to create a new object. So we're going to hit create object, and I'm going to name this kind of the same thing. I'm going to say obj object, and I'm going to say brown spider. And now this object is going to encompass the whole spider, right? The whole character in my scene. So part of that character is going to be the sprite that I just created, right? So under here for this property sprite, now I can go ahead and click on this and click on the brown spider sprite that I just made. This is also where we're going to add all of our coding. We can add events to our object right in here. And for now, we're just going to leave it alone. We're just going to say, okay, we're going to come back to this. Now, the next thing I want to do is create a background. So we're going to go to backgrounds. And then let's create a new background. I don't know where that one came from. I'm going to delete this one. So right click backgrounds, create background. When we get inside there, let's name it, this is going to be the kitchen background. So I'm going to say background, and it's going to be tile. And I'm going to click on load background, and I'm going to click on the tile that we just put in there, or that we just downloaded, which is BG tile. That's just an image that I got off Google. We're going to double click that. And you can see here that this background happened to be 900 by 900, and that's the background. And that's really all it is just a picture. So we're going to say OK on that. Alright, so another element that we're going to need is going to be a room. Rooms are basically kind of like the stages in your game, right? And rooms can contain backgrounds, and rooms can contain objects. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our first room. So we're going to create a room, and let's see if we can rename this. So if you go to settings, we can rename this room as, I'm going to put RM there. This is room. I'm going to say it's the kitchen. Or you could have something like this is level 1 or level 2 or the welcome screen, things like that. Alright, so now you can see that this stage here, there's different tabs, there's objects, there's backgrounds, etc. So we're going to click on backgrounds, and we're going to select the background we already made. Click on that, we're going to click on tile. So you can see this background shows up. And then, oops, what did I just do? Now, if you go to objects, we also want to add objects into our world here, into our room. So if I click on objects, you can see the different objects that we've created within Gamemaker. The only object we created is the brown spider right now. So we can add a brown spider by just clicking inside of our room. So if I click, you can see that it's added. You can see the background is transparent, so it just looks like that spider. So we have that one. I could keep on clicking, these spiders, and now I've added like 5 spiders to my game. So settings, you can see the width and height is 640 by 480. That's something that we can maybe change. The speed is the speed of kind of the frames per second, how fast it checks all of our conditions. So we're going to leave that for now. Let's see what else. Physics. This will be more of an advanced feature when we do games that have gravity in them. But for now, we're going to leave it like this. So just to get the basics, so I'm going to click OK. And so again, what we have here is a room. We have object, we have a background, we have a sprite, but really if I run this program now, what's going to happen is it's going to look to see what rooms I have, and it's going to try to invoke and run that room. It's going to try to create that room. That room has basically a background, and it has a handful of objects in there, which we just added. So if you want to run a program in Gamemaker, you're going to click on this green arrow. So go ahead and click on it. It's going to try to compile the program, see if there's any errors, and then there we go. We can see that it's this screen right now. We made it 680 by 4. I forgot what it was, but here's our screen. And really there's nothing happening with the game. I have 5 objects and I have a room. Okay, so that should pop up, and if that does, then we have everything running right now. Everything is successful. So now we're going to go and we're going to create some actions for the brown spider. Really, in this game, or in this demo, these bugs, including the spiders, are really just going to be moving around, just kind of randomly bouncing around the room. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my brown spider. I'm going to click on that. This time we're going to add some code, and the code here, if you click on Add Event, there are different events that we can choose from. We're going to click on Create. The Create event is an event that is invoked, or this code is run, when the object is created, when it sort of is born into existence. So basically when the world starts, when that kitchen stage starts, this create event will be run for each of the brown spiders. And so all we're going to do is we're going to go into some of these actions. Here's our drag and drop capabilities here. And so we're still going to use this. We're going to click on Move, and this little button here, which is Move Fixed, and we're going to drag it in here. And so we're going to click on that, and we're going to say this applies to self, which means it applies to the object that we're working in, which is the brown spider. And we're going to say which direction do we want to move, right? So I could say I want to move up. I could say I want to move down. If I have both selected, it will randomly choose a direction to start moving in. So in this case, I'm just going to select all of the possible arrows here. So there's 8 different directions that I can choose from. It also gives me a speed to move. And so that might be something that we kind of tinker with. I'm just going to put a speed of 5 for now. Don't worry about the relative button. We'll get into that. So I'm going to say OK. So when the brown spider is created, then all the spiders there should start moving. This should be run, and it should start moving. So let's go ahead and test our program again. I hit play, and you can see the spiders move, and they don't stop. They just keep moving, right? Because we didn't tell them to do anything else. So we're going to go ahead and add some more objects into our first level, our room, so that we kind of have a border. So we're going to actually load in another sprite. So let's start with the sprite again. Create a sprite. In this case, I'm just going to call this the wall. We're going to create some walls in our room, and click on Load Sprite, and we're going to select the did I download it? Oh yes, I did. It's called the sprite wall there, which is really just like a small tile. It's just kind of like a box, really. No special collision detection we're going to have. We're going to just leave this as just a rectangular box, which is what it's set at, and that's it. Now we're going to create the object wall. So create an object for the wall. So obj wall, and we are going to click on the sprite that we just made, which is the wall. And really there's not much coding that we're going to have in this object. We are just going to say that this is solid right here. We're going to mark it as a solid object. So when we mark this as solid, we especially want to do this for collision detection, especially when the objects that we're using, like in this case, are not moving. So that's all we're going to have. We're going to say OK on this. But now I want you to go back to the kitchen. to our stage, our room area. So let's go in there, and we are going to add these walls to our room. Now you can see that this thing is set to 640 by 480. If you recall that the image that we put in there was 900, so if you're wondering about that, if you did select this, you could go up to 900 by 900, and this thing would still encompass that whole image. Now I can zoom way out and zoom way in, but my room is just the thing that has those little tiles on it right there. So I'm gonna keep it at 640 by 480. I'm gonna keep it like that. But so if we go to objects, and here is, now I want the wall object to be selected. So now I can add this by just clicking, right? So I added that object, and you can see it kind of goes right over the tile because I set it up to be that same spacing. So I can click in here and do this. What I'm going to do is just go all the way around the room. Now I can take some shortcuts here. If you see, if I want to add multiple, I can hold down Control Shift and click and drag. So now I'm just adding a bunch of these wall objects, and it's not going to take me too long because I can just drag this around the room. Now if I add some extra ones, I can certainly just delete them. So I just added all bunch of objects to that room. Now these ones over here I want to delete, so I can right click and I can delete these. But now I've added a bunch of these tiles to the room, right? So if we run this, still I don't think anything exciting is going to happen. Let's take a look. Maybe they stop. No, they don't stop. And that's okay because we have to code that in here. What we want to do here is go back to the spider, and we have to say, if the spider hits the wall, what should the spider do? So let's go back into the spider object, and you can see this is our code that we have right now. All we're telling it to do is just to start moving in a direction, which it does. We're going to add an event, and so we're going to say collision, right? When it collides with, when you click on that, you can select when it collides with which object. We're going to select the wall. Then what we want to do, and what you want to go to is right here under this menu, and it doesn't, sometimes when you hover over it, it'll tell you what it is, but this is to bounce against solid objects. So we're going to click and drag this over here, and basically now you can see it says bounce against solid objects, and this is going to apply to self, right? So we're going to keep it like that, and we're just going to say OK. It's really all we have to do for this collision detection. So let's run it one more time. Let's just make sure things are going as we think. So now you can see that the spiders are moving, and once they hit those solid objects, they just reverse their position. Okay, so pretty simple right now. You can see the collision detection is really that large rectangular box for those spiders, and that's okay. So we have these spiders in there. All right, so now that we have that, we have something going, right? And in our storyline, we want to add more bugs. Like the spiders are supposed to be our friends, so we're not supposed to hurt the spiders. But we want to add some of these bugs that we're supposed to destroy. So we're going to add some more objects and sprites. So let's go ahead and do another one here. Let's create a sprite, and we're going to load one, and this time we're going to select one of the bad bugs that we're going to try to destroy, and we're going to say, how about the roach? That thing is huge. So I haven't scaled any of these things down, but let's still use it. It's the roach. We're going to click on that. So there it is, and let's name this sprite the roach, the cockroach. And do we want to make this thing smaller? Let's see if we want to make this thing smaller. We can make it smaller if we want. We can click on edit, and we can transform the image, or we can hit resize canvas, And let's just say we want to make that thing smaller, like, 60%. And that actually was the wrong thing to do. Let's take that back. If we go back to transform, let's go to scale instead. Scale, and let's bring this thing down, and you can see this will actually scale the this image right here. So if you want to scale this, let's say we bring it down to about like right there. Maybe just go half, like 50%. Right? I'm gonna say OK on that. Now you can see that the canvas, however, is bigger than the actual object that's inside of it. What we can do there is if we go, all right, so if we go to crop, now this is the kind of cool thing about Gamemaker is it kind of does a lot of these commands that we are very specific to making these games. If you just hit crop and hit the border size to be 0, if you just hit OK, it basically just selects your new image right there, kind of perfectly around it. So we're going to say OK on that. So now we have a smaller sprite. I'm going to say OK. And all right, so we have the sprite there, the roach. We have to click in or make an object for the roach as well. So I'm going to hit create object, kind of like I did before. In this case, I'm going to have a roach, and I'm going to select the roach sprite that I already have. It's not going to be solid, but I'm going to have similar events. So remember, I have to code each of these objects. I have to add different events which contain code. We're going to do something similar to this. So we're going to make a create event. And when these things are created, we are going to have them start moving in, again, a random direction. We can select the speed. I'm just going to keep it simple to 5 again. And then we also want collision detection with the wall at the very least. So I'm going to hit collision with the wall. If it collides with the wall, I'm going to have it just bounce against the wall, which is this bounce against solid objects button. So I'm going to click OK there. And then what else do we have to do, right? We have to, so let's say OK on that, right? We have to add it to the room. So I'm going to say OK. Say OK to this, and then here's my stage again. I'm going to go ahead and add some roaches in there. So let's, again, with the objects, I'm going to select the roach here, and I'm just going to click in a couple. Now this thing is still kind of big. We could make it even smaller than this because that's still kind of large, right? So we could end up switching the sprite if we wanted to. So let's say we put in 4 roaches, and let's just make sure that this is working right. So I can press play, and we should have a lot of things going there. And so you can see that all the physics are working. We don't have to code every little thing to bounce off these objects. It just does it automatically for us. All right. So now we have, in this demo, we have some cockroaches, which are like the bad guys in this scenario, and the spiders we're supposed to avoid. So all we're going to do here is simply make some click events. So I'm going to try to click on these different objects and try to destroy them. And so that's the next thing that we're going to attempt to create here. So I'm going to get out of this. So let's go ahead and go to the roach. We're going to click on that and go back to the code here. We're going to add another event. So click on add event. This time we're going to select a mouse event. So we're going to click on mouse and then select left pressed. So if the left mouse button is pressed on that sprite or on that object, what are we going to do? So, in Scratch, we would do things like, make it go away. We could hide it. We could add to our score. And we're going to basically do the same thing here. So let's figure out a mechanism to do this. The first thing I'd like to do is just add 1 to like our like a score, some kind of variable. So on this tab on the right, if you click on the score tab, and you can see there's like 3 variables we can use. Now I will say that these variables are global variables, meaning these variables are shared amongst all instances in our world. So we're gonna have to talk about global variables versus like local variables again, but these, just remember that everything that's kind of built into Gamemaker, like this score variable, these lives, and this health, these are all global variables, and so I'll talk about that as we go through. For now, I'm going to actually use the score variable that's built in, and I'm just going to add 1 to the score. So this button right here, if you click on, well, I just right-clicked it and it just added it. So let me get rid of one of those. You're going to add one of those in there, and if you click it, you're going to say the new. We want to add 1 to the score, so we're gonna say 1. Now this is a little bit different. I don't necessarily like this notation, but what we want to do is we want to say like the score is equal to the score plus 1. We want to add 1 to that. So if we set it equal to 1, it'll just set the score equal to 1 constantly. But if I click on relative, then it will just add 1 to the score. So in this case, it's going to set the score, it's going to add 1 to the score that already exists. If I don't click on relative, then it's just going to set it literally to 1 every time, and my score won't increase. So I'm going to click on relative. And so now it says set the score relative to 1. Again, a little strange for me, but that's how it works in Gamemaker. You'll get used to it. And part of the importance of being a good, programmer is just to kind of understand the framework that you're working in. This is the way that Gamemaker does it. So what else can we do? So when we click on the object, we want the score to increase. We also want that bug, or in this case, this cockroach, to be gone, to delete completely. And so if we go to one of these tabs, let's see, over here, there should be a little like trash bin, and it's right here under main 1, these object controls right here. This button right here, we're gonna click and drag this, and it says destroy the instance. So you can think of all these bugs in our world as instances of the cockroach. And so we're going to delete this particular instance. So we're just going to say destroy instance. This applies just to the self. And we're just going to say OK on that. Now we also want to add, I'll show you sound. So if we want to add a sound to this, right? If we look on the left-hand side in our folders, there's a folder for sounds. So let's put in one of these sounds. We're going to hit create new or create sound. And when we do that, we are going to we're going to browse for the sound file that we want. And that is in our resources, and that should be called like squish or something like that. So I can try to find it. And let's see if I can find it. There's one called squish.mp3, so we're going to use that one. We're going to click on that, and you can play it if you want. Maybe not. Tried to, couldn't hear it. But, oh, there it was. And then we're going to go ahead and name it. I'm just going to name it as SD for sound, and then squish. And then I'm going to say OK. And now we have that sound in there. So back to the roach. When we click on the cockroach, we're going to add 1 to score. And we can also play that sound. So now we can go to see sounds over here. We can play a sound, and we can now select that squish sound. If we want to loop it, we can, but we don't here. We just want to say OK. And that's going to be it for now. So we're going to say OK. Let's test it out. So we're going to run it. And let's see, if we click on the cockroach, you can see that it should work. It should disappear. It deletes it, and then it plays that sound. And that's it, right? So now remember, the spiders are our friends. So if we click on a spider, then maybe we could decrease the score or something like that. Or maybe we could just immediately finish the game. So let's do something simple here. I'm going to go back into the brown spider, and let's also add an event that if it's clicked on, so let's click or go to mouse and left pressed. In this case, we could do a bunch of things. We could subtract from our own health maybe, or subtract from our score. We could do all that. In this case, all I'm going to do is, if you look at the game under main 2 and it says game, you can actually just restart the game. So these little arrows here, if I select that, it'll just restart the game. And this button right here will end the game. So you could also just, like, I think ending the game probably just gets out of the game completely. So I don't actually want to do that. I just want to restart the game. So you can test that. When we run it, our score should be increasing. And if I click on a spider, so I have that. Let's say I click on a spider. Now the thing is restarted. So now I have to start this thing over. And, you know, I'm all done getting the cockroaches. All right, so that's going to be it for just part 1 of our tutorial. You can go ahead and continue on part 2 if you still got time. Feel free to take a little time too to try different things, to try different code, to explore Gamemaker, because there are just a ton of things you can do with this. There's so much stuff you can do. It's really cool. So we'll see you in part 2.